In the Texas prairie of 1882, where winds carry hope and sorrow, true family is not born from blood but forged in fires of sacrifice, courage, and love. The Texas prairie stretched endlessly under the scorching sun of 1882. Ayana, a young Comanche woman with braided black hair and beaded buckskin dress, knelt beside the muddy riverbank gathering medicinal herbs. Her weathered hands moved skillfully among the wild sage and prairie roses. The silence was broken by weak groans, echoing from beneath a pile of scattered rocks near the water's edge. Her dark eyes narrowed as she approached cautiously, her moccasins silent on the sandy ground. "Help! Please!" came a raspy voice from under the stones. Ayana's heart raced as she began pulling away the heavy rocks with determined strength. Beneath lay a battered white man, his face swollen and bloodied, his clothes torn and dusty. Despite her tribe's hatred for white settlers, something in his desperate eyes stirred compassion within her. "Water," he whispered through cracked lips. She hesitated, knowing the danger of helping an outsider, but her healing spirit could not ignore his suffering. As Jacob Sterling slowly regained consciousness in Ayana's teepee, his blue eyes struggled to focus through the pain. The scent of burning sage and healing herbs filled the air. "Where? Where am I?" he managed to ask, his voice barely audible. "Safe," Ayana replied in broken English, her hands gentle as she applied a poultice to his wounds. "Your own people. They did this to you." Jacob's face darkened with bitter memories. "My cousin Marcus. He took everything. The land deeds. Left me for dead. My daughter," Jacob whispered urgently, trying to sit up despite his injuries. "Rose. She's only 9 years old. Marcus has her at the ranch." Ayana's expression softened at the mention of a child. "He dangerous, man?" she asked, her English careful but clear. Jacob nodded grimly. "He'll kill anyone who stands in his way, even family." The weight of his words hung heavy in the smoky air of the teepee. Ayana studied his face, seeing not just physical wounds but the deeper scars of betrayal and fear for his child's safety. Days passed in Ayana's teepee as Jacob's strength slowly returned. She tended his wounds with careful hands, applying crushed willow bark for pain and wild mint to prevent infection. "Rose has golden hair like sunshine," Jacob murmured, his eyes distant with worry. "She loves to collect pretty stones and sing little songs." Ayana listened intently, her heart aching for this separated father and child. Through simple gestures and broken words, she began to understand the depth of his love and desperation. "Marcus, he smiled like Snake," Jacob said, his voice growing stronger each day. "Always wanted the ranch, even when we were boys." Ayana crushed healing roots between smooth stones, the rhythmic sound filling the silence. "Your woman?" she asked, noticing his worn wedding ring. Jacob's face clouded with old grief. "Sarah died when Rose was born. Just me and my little girl now." The vulnerability in his voice surprised him. He hadn't spoken of his wife to anyone in years. As Jacob regained mobility, he watched Ayana work with growing admiration. Her movements were graceful and purposeful, whether grinding herbs or mending his torn shirt with sinew and bone needles. "You saved my life," he said quietly. "Why?" Ayana paused in her work, her dark eyes meeting his. "All life sacred. White man, Indian, same blood flows red." Her simple wisdom struck him deeply. In his world of greed and betrayal, her compassion seemed almost otherworldly. With trembling hands, Jacob began carving a small wooden bird from a piece of cottonwood, using his pocket knife. "For you," he said, presenting the crude but heartfelt gift to Ayana. "To say, thank you." She accepted it with a soft smile, her fingers tracing the rough wings. "Pretty bird?" she whispered. As evening shadows lengthened across the prairie, they sat together in comfortable silence, each lost in thoughts of the dangerous journey ahead to rescue Rose from Marcus's treacherous hands. "Come," Ayana whispered at dawn, leading Jacob through thick mesquite bushes that scratched at their clothes. Hidden behind a wall of thorny shrubs lay a narrow cave entrance beside a crystal-clear stream. "My secret place," she explained, her voice echoing softly in the rocky grotto. Sunlight filtered through cracks in the stone ceiling, creating dancing patterns on the smooth walls. Jacob marveled at the natural sanctuary, completely invisible from the outside, yet spacious and cool within. In the peaceful grotto, Ayana taught Jacob the ancient ways of her people. See here, she pointed to tracks in the soft earth. Rabbit runs to water at sunrise. Her fingers traced the delicate prints, while Jacob watched intently. And this? He asked, indicating deeper marks. Deer, 3 does, 1 young. She smiled at his eager learning. You listen with eyes and ears, not just mouth. Jacob found himself absorbing her wisdom like a man dying of thirst drinks water. As they worked together gathering roots and weaving grass baskets, Jacob shared memories of Rose. She makes mud pies and calls them special cakes, he chuckled, his weathered hands clumsy with the weaving. Sounds like she tried to feed whole world, Ayana replied warmly. When Rose was 3, she tried to adopt every stray cat in town. Their laughter echoed in the cave, a sound that seemed to heal something broken in both their hearts. The shared joy made the approaching danger feel temporarily distant. A distant rumble of hoofbeats shattered their tranquil moment. Through the cave entrance, they spotted 4 riders on the horizon, their silhouettes dark against the orange sunset. Marcus, Jacob breathed, his face hardening with resolve. He's searching for me. Ayana placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Time to get your daughter back, she said quietly. Jacob nodded, knowing their sanctuary days were ending. The real test of their bond was about to begin in the dangerous world beyond these protective walls. Ayana painted her face with clay and charcoal, transforming herself into a traveling Indian trader. She draped colorful beads around her neck and filled a leather pouch with small turquoise amulets. I go alone, she told Jacob firmly. Woman trader, they not suspect. Jacob's jaw tightened with worry. It's too dangerous. If Marcus recognizes you, he see what he expect to see, Ayana replied, adjusting her disguise. White man think all Indians look same. Her confident smile didn't quite hide the fear in her dark eyes. At the Sterling Ranch, Ayana approached the main house with calculated humility. Good beads, strong medicine, she called out in broken English, holding up her wares. Marcus emerged from the porch, his cold blue eyes scanning her dismissively. We don't trade with savages, he sneered. But silver, I pay good silver, Ayana persisted, jingling coins in her pouch. Marcus's greed overcame his prejudice. Show me what you have, he demanded, his attention focused on the glittering trinkets. While Marcus examined the beads, Ayana's keen eyes spotted an open window to his study. Very pretty for white woman, she suggested, pointing to an ornate necklace. As Marcus turned to look, she quickly memorized the room's layout. A large desk, a metal strongbox, and papers scattered across the surface. Too expensive, Marcus growled, but Ayana had seen enough. Maybe you like tomorrow. I bring more, she said, backing away slowly while her heart pounded with the knowledge of what lay within reach. That night, Ayana slipped through the study window like a shadow. Her fingers found the metal strongbox, surprisingly unlocked in Marcus's arrogance. Inside lay forged land deeds, letters to Eastern investors, and correspondence revealing his plan to sell the ranch and disappear with the money. He plans to eliminate all witnesses, she whispered to Jacob later, showing him the stolen documents. Jacob's face darkened as he read his own death warrant, written in his cousin's familiar handwriting. Including Rose, he said grimly. Under the cover of a moonless night, Jacob and Ayana crept toward the ranch buildings. The old barn stood silent, its wooden walls weathered gray in the darkness. Rose is in there, Jacob whispered, his voice tight with emotion. Through a crack in the barn door, they could see a small figure huddled in the corner on a pile of hay. Papa, came a frightened whisper. Yes, sweetheart, it's me, Jacob breathed, his heart breaking at the sight of his daughter's tear-streaked face and torn dress. Who's the Indian lady, Papa? Rose asked quietly as Ayana gently lifted her from the hay. A friend, Jacob replied, checking the barn door for guards. She helped Papa get better so he could come save you. Rose's blue eyes, so like her father's, studied Ayana with childlike curiosity rather than fear. She has kind eyes, the little girl observed. Ayana smiled softly, smoothing Rose's tangled golden hair. We go now, little one, she whispered. You safe with us. As they slipped from the barn, Blake's harsh voice cut through the night air. Well, well, look what we caught sneaking around. The overseer stepped from the shadows, his rifle gleaming in the starlight. Marcus, he shouted toward the house. Found your problem. Jacob pushed Rose behind him protectively. Run, he told Ayanna urgently. Take her and run. But Ayanna was already moving, striking a match and tossing it into the haystack. Flames erupted instantly, casting dancing shadows across the barnyard and creating the perfect distraction. In the chaos of the spreading fire, Jacob felt Blake's bullet tear through his shoulder, spinning him around. Papa! Rose screamed, but Ayanna had already scooped up the child and was running toward the darkness beyond the burning barn. Go! Jacob shouted through gritted teeth, clutching his wounded shoulder. I'll hold them off. He stumbled behind a water trough, returning Blake's fire, while Marcus's angry shouts echoed from the house. The flames illuminated his determined face as he bought precious time for his daughter's escape. Despite Jacob's protests, Ayanna returned to the burning ranch under cover of smoke. She found him slumped behind the water trough, his shirt soaked with blood. Stubborn man, she muttered, helping him to his feet. I told you to go, he gasped weakly. And I told you we family now, she replied firmly, supporting his weight as they stumbled toward safety. Rose waited in the darkness, tears streaming down her face. Papa's hurt bad, she whispered. He'll be fine, Ayanna promised, though worry clouded her features. Back in their rocky sanctuary, Ayanna worked frantically to clean Jacob's wound by firelight. Bullet went through, she said with relief. You lucky man. Rose knelt beside her father, her small hands trembling as she held his good hand. I was so scared, Papa, she whispered. I thought they were going to hurt me like they hurt you. Jacob's eyes filled with tears of rage and tenderness. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I should have protected you better. The lady saved us both, Rose said, looking gratefully at Ayanna. As Jacob's fever broke on the third day, he watched Ayanna caring for Rose with gentle patience. She braided the girl's hair with wildflowers and taught her to weave grass into small dolls. You're a natural mother, Jacob said softly. Ayanna's cheeks flushed at the compliment. She good child. Strong spirit like father. Rose giggled as Ayanna tickled her with a feather. Can we keep her, Papa? The little girl asked innocently. Jacob's heart swelled with emotions he thought he'd buried with his wife. That evening, as Rose slept peacefully between them, Jacob reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a tarnished silver locket. This belonged to Sarah, he said quietly, opening it to reveal a small photograph. She would have liked you. Ayanna accepted the precious gift with reverence. You sure? She asked, her voice barely audible. I've never been more sure of anything, Jacob replied, his fingers gently closing hers around the locket. You saved more than my life, Ayanna. You saved my soul. Their eyes met in the flickering firelight, unspoken love passing between them. Jacob rode into the Comanche camp with Ayanna and Rose, his arm still in a makeshift sling. The painted warriors watched suspiciously as he dismounted, their hands resting on their weapons. Chief Eagle Feather, Jacob called out respectfully, removing his hat. The elderly chief emerged from his teepee, his weathered face stern beneath his feathered headdress. White man brings trouble to our people, he said in heavily accented English. I bring truth, Jacob replied, his voice steady despite his nervousness. And I ask for justice, not charity. My family has wronged your people, Jacob continued, kneeling before the chief while Rose clung to his good arm. My father took land that wasn't his. My cousin Marcus now plans to sell sacred ground to strangers from the east. Chief Eagle Feather's dark eyes narrowed. You speak of wrongs, but white man's words are like wind. Jacob reached into his saddlebag and pulled out Marcus's stolen documents. These papers prove his lies. He forged my name, stole my land, and would have killed me and my daughter to hide his crimes. The tribal council gathered around a crackling fire as Jacob spread the documents on a buffalo hide. Marcus plans to sell to a railroad company, he explained, pointing to the correspondence. They will tear up the prairie, drive away the buffalo, and destroy the sacred burial grounds. An old warrior spat into the fire. Why should we trust white man's words? He demanded. Rose stepped forward bravely. Because Ayanna saved us, she said in her clear child's voice. And Papa wants to make things right. The council members exchanged meaningful glances at the girl's innocent courage. Chief Eagle Feather studied Jacob for a long moment before speaking. You ask our protection, but what do you offer in return? Jacob met his gaze steadily. My life, if necessary. My ranch will be a safe haven for your people. The burial grounds will remain untouched. He paused, his voice growing emotional. I want my daughter to grow up understanding justice, not inheriting the hatred of her ancestors. The chief nodded slowly. Ayanna has chosen well. You may stay, but you must prove your words with deeds. Hope flickered in Jacob's eyes as the camp began to accept their unusual family. That evening, the tribal fire cast dancing shadows across the camp as drums echoed through the Texas night. Jacob found Ayanna sitting apart from the celebration, gazing up at the brilliant canopy of stars. Beautiful night, he said quietly, settling beside her on the soft grass. Stars tell stories of great love and great sacrifice, she replied, her voice thoughtful. My grandmother say each star is warrior's heart, still burning bright. Jacob looked up at the countless points of light, feeling the weight of his own heart's transformation. Ayanna, Jacob began, his voice trembling with emotion. I need to tell you something. She turned to face him, her dark eyes reflecting the starlight. I never thought I could love again after Sarah died. But you? He struggled for words, his weathered hands fidgeting with his hat. You brought light back into my darkness. You saved not just my life, but my soul. Ayanna's breath caught in her throat. Jacob, Do I deserve your love? He asked quietly. After everything my family has done to your people? Ayanna reached out and gently touched his scarred cheek. You not your father. You not your cousin. You are man who risks everything for daughter, who learns wisdom of prairie, who speaks truth to enemies. Her voice grew stronger. Heart knows no color, Jacob Sterling. Only love or hate. You choose love. Jacob's eyes filled with tears of relief and joy. Then I choose you, Ayanna, if you'll have me. She smiled, her whole face radiant in the firelight. I choose you too, white man with good heart. From his saddlebag, Jacob produced a bracelet he had crafted during his recovery. Hawk feathers intertwined with turquoise beads. I made this for you, he said, fastening it around her wrist. The hawk for your free spirit, the turquoise for your wisdom. Ayanna admired the beautiful gift, tears glistening in her eyes. It perfect, she whispered. From around the fire, Chief Eagle Feather watched approvingly, nodding to the other elders. Love like this brings hope, he said quietly. Perhaps our peoples can find peace through such hearts. The stars seemed to shine brighter as Jacob and Ayanna embraced. The spring fair in Prairie Vale bustled with activity as merchants hawked their wares and children ran between the wooden stalls. Jacob rode into town with Chief Eagle Feather at his side, Ayanna and Rose following close behind. Townspeople stopped and stared at the unusual group. A wounded white rancher, a Comanche chief in full regalia, and an Indian woman with a blonde child. Folks, Jacob called out, his voice carrying across the square, I have something important to tell you all. A crowd began to gather, their faces filled with curiosity and suspicion. Jacob dismounted painfully, his arm still tender from the bullet wound. You all know me as Jacob Sterling, he announced, pulling out Marcus's stolen documents. But you don't know the truth about my cousin Marcus and his foreman Blake. He held up the forged papers for all to see. These prove that Marcus tried to steal my ranch through fraud and attempted murder. Gasps rippled through the crowd. That's a serious accusation, Sterling, called out Doc Mitchell, pushing through the gathering. You got proof of these claims? I have proof, Jacob declared, unfolding the correspondence. Letters to Eastern investors, forged deeds with my signature, and plans to sell sacred Indian burial grounds to the railroad. The crowd murmured angrily at this revelation. Chief Eagle Feather stepped forward, his presence commanding immediate attention. White man speaks truth, he said in his deep, authoritative voice. We have seen these papers with our own eyes. Rose stepped out from behind Ayanna, her young voice clear and brave. Uncle Marcus locked me in the barn and said Papa was dead, she testified. But Ayanna saved us both. Sheriff Johnson pushed through the crowd, his badge glinting in the afternoon sun. "Where are Marcus and Blake now?" he demanded. "Probably halfway to Mexico with their stolen money," Jacob replied. "But they left plenty of evidence behind." He handed over the documents to the sheriff, who examined them with growing anger. "Well, I'll be damned," Johnson muttered. "This signature's been forged sure enough." He looked up at the crowd. "Marcus Sterling and his accomplice are wanted men as of today." Jacob turned to Ayanna, taking her hand proudly. "This woman saved my life and my daughter's. She's the heart of our family now." 6 months later, the Sterling Ranch had transformed into a thriving homestead where two cultures lived in harmony. Jacob knelt in his workshop, carefully carving a ring from white buffalo bone and setting it with a brilliant turquoise stone. The autumn wind rustled through the golden prairie grass as he polished the precious band with trembling hands. "Papa, is it ready?" Rose asked excitedly, peeking through the doorway. Her hair was now braided with beads in the Comanche style, and she wore a beautiful buckskin dress that Ayanna had made for her. That evening, as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, Jacob found Ayanna tending to her herb garden behind the house. "Ayanna," he said softly, his heart pounding as he dropped to one knee, "will you marry me and make our family complete?" He presented the handcrafted ring, its turquoise catching the last rays of sunlight. Ayanna's eyes filled with tears of joy as she looked at the beautiful symbol of their love. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Always yes, my beloved Jacob." Rose squealed with delight and threw her arms around both of them as they embraced. "We're really going to be a family forever," she exclaimed, her blue eyes sparkling with happiness. Around them, the ranch bustled with activity. Young Comanche men worked alongside seasoned cowboys, learning to handle cattle with gentle expertise. Lonely settlers who had lost their homes found shelter and purpose here. The sound of laughter and different languages blended together like a beautiful song carried on the prairie wind. Above the front door of their home, Jacob carved words into the wooden beam with careful, loving strokes. "Love is the light that guides through the darkest night and never fades." As he stepped back to admire his work, Ayanna slipped her hand into his, the turquoise ring gleaming on her finger. Rose danced around them in the yard, chasing fireflies in the gathering dusk. "This is how family should be," Ayanna said softly. "Not born from blood, but built from choice and love." Jacob nodded, watching their daughter's joyful silhouette against the star-filled Texas sky, knowing their love had indeed conquered all darkness.